Hello everyone, my name is Jay and today I'll be conducting an interview on the topic Intercultural Communication. Our interviewee today is Mr. Shushut Kewal, an associate at an engineering consultancy based out of New York City, headquartered at Chicago. Without a further delay, let's begin the interview.
Uh, Normally I'll be asking you questions now regarding power distance and uncertainty avoidance. Basically I'll be going with a slow start and slowly building up the pace with the sort of questions I'll be asking. So in
Okay.
first, I would like to ask, in your workplace, do people usually call their managers by the first name or by the titles?
It's typically the first name, at least in the entire US that I've seen. It's always with the first name. The title doesn't come into picture until unless you're in a client setup.
Okay, okay.
So it's typically the first name.
Okay, so this happens in the entire US, not just in the East Coast or anything, nothing like that.
Right, I agree. I've seen that it happens in the entire US. I think that's the cultural difference where in
Yeah.
India we used to address our
Yeah, when you
managers
compare it to
as
India, then you call by like
uh,
files and all. Yeah. So normally,
right.
how comfortable do you feel speaking up in front of your bosses or your other supervisors or managers and so on?
That's actually it's again another cultural difference that I saw here in the US. It's very comfortable to speak to your higher ups. I get to speak with my company's president, who is the topmost person in the company. Very free, very candid, calling him by his name.
Okay. Yeah.
And no, sir, no, Mr. President, or anything. So it's pretty, very, very flexible, very comfortable,
Okay.
friendly situation.
So it's a friendly environment and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So moving on to the next one, do junior employees usually wait for instructions from their authorities, from the higher authorities, or do they take initiative on their own?
So typically, all the junior employees go through a learning curve. During the learning curve, they are put with a supervisor, an immediate supervisor who tells them every single step what is to be done and what they have to do. But after one point, what happens is you know your set of tasks to be done.
Okay.
So anything that if you receive an assignment which is within the set of tasks, the juniors do it because they know they have to do it because that's part of the job description. But if there are any anomalies, which is something outside their competence, then they ask the supervisor or the next immediate person or their colleagues for guidance on what do I do? Do you want to take it up, or is there somebody else in the company who can do it, or do you want me to experiment it? Which typically doesn't happen, but yeah.
Yeah, so moving on to the next one, when decisions are made within the group and so on, do they usually come from the top or go through group discussions or so on?
So there are, to answer these questions, I would say that there are two types of companies. One is like a typical MNC where everything is part of a standard chain where all the decisions come from the top and there is no decision making in between. Everything is just pushed out. But the company like mine, where I work at CTL Group, we are based out of Chicago, which is our headquarters. And we have multiple branches in Chicago, Atlanta, Texas, and New York. In the New York office, it is more of a democratic situation where we have a group leader, a group director who discusses all the decisions or takes in input from all the employees regarding any decision that has to be made. So I think this is an anomaly because we're a small group, small entity. We, of course, there are going to be some major decisions which can be pushed by the ownership or from the corporate MNC, the corporate division. But most of the decisions are discussed decisions that we take because all the services that we provide are engineering technical services. So they all go with engineering judgments.
Okay. Okay. According to you, how do you think hierarchy affects teamwork in your company or in your work of line or somewhat?
I don't think there's a huge difference when it comes to working on specific projects because all of us work together. I have my supervisor who's working on the same tasks which I do. For example, for engineering services, AutoCAD is a software where you actually design buildings, elevations, plans, model them. It's typically a very labor-intensive task. These are more or less done by juniors, but in our company, we have our supervisors and like the director of the New York office who jumps into these trivial tasks as well. So I don't think there is the hierarchy is going to affect the work. Rather, all of them try to work on equal stuff. For instance, I being at a mid to junior level, I get to work on a lot of billing, financial reviews. So the supervisor exposes me to all these situations, which I think is an anomaly. Again, you don't get to see them in standard MNCs. Uh, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a nice answer. It's fine. So, have you ever experienced a situation where the cultural differences in hierarchy created misconception or a sort of confusion at workplace?
I would say here and there, yes. Uh, the one of the most simplest cultural difference I would point out is very silly. But what happens is if we are in a group setting and the supervisor tries to explain something to us. Typically, when something is explained to us, I mean, us coming from the Indian culture,
Yeah,
uh, when we are actually listening to something, we tend to nod like this. Hmm.
yeah, that's a
We
very
tend to move our head sideways.
yeah, that's a very Indian thing.
But that's a very Indian thing. We do this.
Yeah,
And
yes.
then after the entire discussion, so my supervisor is like, Sush, did you follow whatever I said? Like, yes, I did. And then he's like, why were you nodding your head this way? So there are some small cultural things which play a role. But eventually, I think your company also learns
Uh-huh.
how you are. And my company is actually a very, it's our office is made of people from India, from Italy, from Poland,
Okay.
a lot of immigrants who are there. So everybody has a different culture, and we keep learning through it. And it's more of like a very kind of a little casual setting in a company. So if there's some misunderstandings, everybody just laugh through it. Like, oh, come on, Suresh. Yeah.
So, when you just said that there are people from Italy and so other parts of the world, what are the takeaways you get to take with you when you're working with them, sitting on the table, and when you discuss a project or so on? What is the main difference you find in the way, or like the way they approach or the way of thinking? What is the main difference do you find, and what do you try to learn from those people?
So what I have seen is, I wouldn't say a difference. Let me say what kind of similarities I've seen.
Okay.
More than difference, I've seen a lot of similarities. So the similarities are, firstly, all of us are driven towards growth and success.
Mm.
Everybody wants to learn, do more certifications, get licensing and grow in their career. Everybody is all the immigrants that I've seen here, they have been like driven. And culturally, I have seen a few countries are similar to what we Indians are. So that's like the similarity that I've seen. Not much of a difference because at the end of the day, people are people. We can't really point much there.
Nice. So, how do clients from different cultures react to authority figures in terms of business negotiations? Or in your workplace, it could be when a final decision is made about a project. How do people come up to a certain point? Is it a certain understanding you all people have, or do they put in their opinions, or how does it go?
So when you're talking about business decisions, these are tied with high monetary value. So these decisions come up from the ownership and the C-suite from the corporate office. When such things come down, this is basically these people are setting the goal or the vision of the company. So although we have a discussion in between on how to lead the project, but there will be some guidelines which are already preset by the client and the ownership, which we need to abide because they set the direction. They're like, okay, so guys, we need to work on this specific project. This requires task A, B, C, D. So we need to provide these services to them. Now, how are you going to provide these services A, B, C, and D is an internal discussion. But the decision of we need to provide these services because this is a specialty. We can do these services, task A and B and C and D. So internal discussion is for how to get it done. And if there's a big business decision which is coming up, we need to follow it.
Okay. So if you had to choose, would you prefer a company with a very clear chain of command, or a one with an open or flexible leadership?
I mean, see, I have been working only since the past 3.5 years now. I started off working in a very flexible environment. At the same time, I have known and heard of very structured companies through my friends. So I personally, my personal preference will be a very flexible environment because it gives you a kind of a semi-formal feel and it gives you the freedom to make your own decisions, live up to your own mistakes if you make any mistakes. You take the liability of whatever you do.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, I like it. I like the thrill in it.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Moving to the next part. So how important are rules and policies in your company's daily sort of operations, or the set of goals you guys set for, the monthly markup and so on? So how important do policies play a role?
So we're talking about company policies and operating policies. I think they're two different things. The
Okay.
company policies are something which are rigid. That's how the company operates on. So, for instance, like the PTO schedule,
Mm-hmm.
or your what do you call the insurance and all other indirect expenses. And we have like an employee handbook for different types of allowances, the code of ethics, the kind of dressing we have to wear for our workplace. All these things are policy driven. This is the company's policy. We need to abide with it.
Of course.
But there are again some operating policies. Operating policies are where the company says that you, as an employee, need to, or you as the group, like a New York group or Texas group or an Atlanta group, need to bring in revenue of X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
So the way this is set up is first the ownership asks us, the New York office, what is your projected target for the next quarter or 2 quarters? So we give them an estimation. So based on the estimation, they set up a target. Now, in this next 3 to 6 months, we will see where do we reach. Do we reach close to the targeted value or do we surpass the targeted value? If we do not reach the targeted value, there's going to be a review session with the ownership, and we need to kind of analyze on why we did not reach the target and why was it an overestimation or we just lost some clients there. So
Okay.
we try to do a, like what do you call like a breakdown analysis on what and why it happened. It's not harmful. It's just we just try to analyze what went wrong. Again, as engineers, you want to know where your
Yes.
math went wrong.
Yeah.
So this is what we tend to do, and it's just that you change your target for the next year. Of course, the company runs on an operating margin. They need a margin. As long as you're meeting the margin that the company needs, and then after that, whatever you bring is good for the company.
Yeah. Okay. So when a project is unclear, do people feel comfortable experimenting, or do they wait for detailed guidelines provided by the higher authorities?
So I wouldn't say higher authorities. Yes, you're right. Whenever there are some projects which are unclear or something which is not our expertise, our New York office expertise, we refer to people in Chicago's office who specialize in this job, and then we take their guidance on how to approach onto these projects.
Okay.
And the thing in my in the company that I work in, or in the field that I work in, the construction field, liability plays a huge role.
Okay.
Everybody who's working on a project needs to have a license to work in that specific state. So if tomorrow we sign off on a building that I was the engineer of record and I have performed some repair program here, 5 years, 10 years down the lane, if that falls down onto somebody and the person who's injured sues the building, now the court has the right to call the engineer of record who performed the repairs here. And here now I have to prove my due diligence that hey, buildings fail, buildings move. But I have done my engineering, I've done my mathematical calculation appropriate. I have repaired the building to the best of my ability. So now it's at the court's judgment. At times, the court is not happy. They feel that you did not do your due diligence. You had some negligence there. So, and that in that such situations, they impose a huge fine on you, which goes into millions, and they revoke your license to practice. It's like a license to practice, so you can't practice anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a huge liability which is linked in the profession that we do. Therefore, coming back to your question, if there's something new, people don't want to directly experiment because if they go wrong, they know the liability linked with this and they know the consequences. Therefore, what they do is we consult people in Chicago or in Texas, get their opinion. Hey guys, I have a new client who's approached for this project, and this is not my expertise, but I'm willing to put my license on it with knowing all the risks and with an engineering calculation. So we get on a few calls with them. We understand what are the implications, and after one point, we jump into it, or we also take their guidance. We tell them, "Can you do this for me? Can you just start the project and give it to me, and then we'll take it up from between." And at the end, we do a final review with them. Once they're like, "Yeah, this looks fine," and then we sign off on it. So we don't want to experiment because it's going to be very expensive if you
Yeah.
experiment.
So how do you think employees here deal with mistakes, or do they see them as a learning or a failure?
Uh, I think depends on what kind of mistake. If your mistake is causing revenue damage, then there is no chance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be millions, of
But
course.
so if there's no revenue damage, it's a personality issue. I think it boils down to the conversation with between the supervisor or the HR, and that's if it's a personality mistake. If it's a work-related mistake where you miscalculated something, but it did not go through to the final step, and somebody in the final step caught it, they see it as a review and a learning lesson. That's why for every report or any kind of things that we do, there is a supervisor who's doing the final review. This is how we avoid. There are multiple times that I've made mistakes, I've done typos, I've done I've missed a decimal point in my calculation. So my supervisor catches it and then he sends it back to me. I do the revision. So it goes like a learning experience. Um, and again, if I would say like, if my supervisor had to write the report on the first time, and I review it, I'm sure I would find some mistake because four eyes are always better than two eyes.
Of course.
That's the reason a review for everything is very important. Although you're an expert, you're a veteran, you will make some kind of typo, some kind of mistake somewhere. So this is what we do. We go through a lot of mistakes. I go through a lot of mistakes. They're called out, and as long as it's not submitted to the client, you're fine. If it's submitted and you make a mistake, you can still give them a revision. But if that mistake of yours has caused money, caused loss to the company, then that's a further discussion.
Okay. So in this terms, is it again an employee point of view? Is it safer for you guys to take a risk? Not safer, but let me rephrase my question. Do you guys take a risk, a calculated risk, or do you go for a safer option? Like you said, two eyes is better than the four eyes. So which one do you feel is a better option? Taking us a calculated risk, which is a margin could be calculated and so on, or whether you could just play blindly or so on. How do you feel it?
So I think there are two kinds of people again. In my company, we have these two sets of people. Some people want to play it very safe, by the book. by the book, by the code, by the standard rules and regulations and everything,
Following through every single line.
following through every single line.
Yeah.
This has its own pros and cons.
Yeah.
Pros are, you're being meticulous, you're doing a good job, that's fine. But at the end of the day, whatever you're doing is costing more money for the client. So it might affect your client relationship. And you as a house owner, if you have to make some renovations to your house, an engineer is like, you need to do this, you need to do that, and he points out 10 different things, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
It's going to affect your relationship with the client. So that's going to be the con. But I have also seen some people who are typically calculative. They understand, okay, this guy has 10 things wrong in his building. But how many of these things or of these 10 things are unsafe? How many of them need immediate repairs? So some people go to the owner and ask them, what is your repair timeline? Are you looking for a 5-year repair or a 10-year repair? Because all these repairs are going to fail at some point. But we need to understand that what the owner's vision is. If an owner is like, oh, I'm just looking for a 5-year repair. After 5 years, something else is going to come up. I'm going to do another 5-year repair then. Then out of these 10 problems, you narrow down into 4 or 5 things. And they tell him, okay, you have 10 issues. Out of them, 5 need to be addressed so that you are good for 10 years. And the other things, you're good for 5 years, sorry. And the other things that you can leave it for the next 5 years. They're good for the next 5 years.
Okay.
So they give a very calculative decision, and this also helps in maintaining the client relationship. These clients want to keep coming back to you. You shouldn't be surprised if you see the same client come back to you in the next 5 years, saying that, hey, you did some repairs on my building 5 years ago. Now it's time for you to do it again.
Okay. Yeah.
So there are two people who are safe, people who are calculative and want to have good relationships.
Okay.
I think it's a personality question.
Okay. Yeah. True. So, do you think employees here handle obscurity differently than in other cultures you have seen?
Um, I don't know. They What
And
was the question again? Sorry, I lost it then.
so, do you think employees here can handle obscurity differently than in other cultures you have seen? So,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's here people handle it in a different way, and we coming from an Indian background, we are like we can do anything. Uh, we can take in a lot of pressure to get things done. We know the means and methods to get it done. So I think people here that I've seen is a little different. Yeah, I should say that.
So, how much do my bad? How much do contracts and legal agreements matter in building trust with clients? Again, it's a client and constructor thing or client-based question.
Yes, they're very important because at the end of the day, the owner's owner's protection is in a piece of document.
Yeah.
And that piece of document is very important.
Mhm.
Especially here in the US, everything is based on liability. You see people suing another person just very randomly. So the owner wants to be safe. The contractor wants to be safe that he's getting paid. The engineer wants to be safe that I am not making any monetary decisions. I am just telling the owner, you can pay the contractor for the work he's done because he's done it right, in my opinion. So everybody wants to keep themselves covered.
Yeah.
So because you want to cover yourself, legal documents are very important, and they should be. All companies have a legal team. So before you sign any
Yeah.
contracts, it goes through a regular check to them. And if they're like, oh, something's funny here, they're asking us to take the liability if it goes into if the building fails, then you again stop it. You talk to the contractor, talk to the owner, and then re-sign it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, would you say your company encourages flexibility or does it stick strongly to established procedures?
Mm, See, there are some standard procedures
Yeah.
that we need to follow. That is for sure, because that's not a company policy. That's a that's a standard testing method that we need to do. It is engineeringly proof by engineering evidence. It's proof that if you do a sort of repair in an X sort of way, that is the best possible repair. So that is a standard procedure that we have to follow. However, we will come up with some situations where these standard procedures do not work. So in such situation, the company is very flexible. Companies like, you find your own ways to do it, but as long as you get it done in the right way and it's safe and you have some engineering evidence to back yourself up. Because I know some companies don't want to take it. If it's not a regular building, not a regular repair, they just don't want to get their hands dirty in it.
Yeah,
So my company is like gives us the freedom to do it as long as you have all these evidences.
yeah. Okay, so the one last question. If a big opportunity comes with high risk, do you think leaders here would go for it or step back? So high risk means, of course, big millions, big bucks, and so on. But again, higher the work and expeditions and so as well. What is your opinion on it? Would you take it or would they step back from it? The high superiors and so on. The company from Atlanta or so on, something like that. What would they do normally?
So if you are getting a big client, you will take it. That's for sure. Because you're generating regular, constant income,
Yes.
because of which you can hire more people, you can get work done. But the downside of this is, as you said, high risk, high reward, and so is the risk of if you lose this client, you're going to stop your entire revenue,
Yeah. True.
which you don't want to do. So
True.
therefore, what companies do is when you get a big opportunity like this, they take in the opportunity, bring in people who can work on it, establish a team who can take care of this specific client, big client, and parallelly, they diversify the portfolio into other different projects. So that if the main engine is shut down, you at least have your secondary and tertiary engines, which are still
Yeah.
able to pay off the salaries and cover the margin of the company. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, a company is a business.
Yes. True.
All they want is profit. As long as you're able to show them numbers, you're able to bring profit, that's what they want. So if the main engine shuts down, it's going to be difficult. So I think companies, nobody is going to say no to it. It's going to be hard to deal with such big clients. We've had it. We've personally had a very big client, and after one point, they had some financial crisis, so we had to withdraw, to cancel the agreement. And then we again have our backup other secondary and tertiary engines, which are still pumping into the machine, and we're still running.
Yeah.
So that's why I would say that leaders do not say no to such opportunities that I have seen, or if I was in the position, I wouldn't say no. I would create a system that will take care of itself and also diversify the portfolio.
Okay. So here's one more last question. So you doing a master's there in New York City, and you have been working for the past 3.5 years, and so on. So and you have spent a good time in India as well. So when you're comparing the cultural difference, what is the biggest and main differences do you see? Not in terms of the people, of course, in terms of the behavior of your colleagues and your mates and so on. What is your opinion? Basically, I just want a wrap up of what's the biggest cultural difference you have taken from comparing India to the States?
Right. To answer the question again, I need to give you a background that I haven't worked extensively in India. I have just worked in the university as a research assistant, but I haven't worked in an MNC. But from what I have known and heard, the major difference comes with your relationship with your
Yes.
supervisor. Your relationship with your supervisor and the way the supervisor treats you. Does the supervisor treat you like like a junior,
Hmm.
or does he treat you like a friend?
Yeah.
These two are very important. I've actually seen there are actually a couple of good supervisors in India as well. So they are very friendly. They're like, hey, don't call me sir, call me by my name. I have met such people. So such people still exist, but the major difference I think between the culture here, work culture in the US and work culture in India, that I would say is the way the supervisor treats you, and is there a healthy competition? Is there competition, first of all? Because everybody wants to grow. Here in the US, it's very clear that everybody wants to grow.
Yes.
But in India, that I've seen, some people wants to like step over another person to get credit in a very corporate style,
Yeah.
which here doesn't exist too much.
Yes.
Because here it's very black and blue.
Yes, of course.
Like if you've done the work, they will know it. If you
Yeah.
didn't, they will know. You know,
Hmm.
they will
Yeah.
know it. So I think it's mostly about the relationship, how your manager is treating you.
Yeah.
So I would say if somebody is a manager in India or somebody like some of our peers is on their track to become a manager in India,